Hello and welcome to Business Article. My name is Sumit Kumar and today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic which should be discussed at a very larger scale. Yesterday, the Finance Secretary, Government of India, Mr. T.V. Swaminathan, made a statement in which he has mentioned that most of the PSU bank is going to be privatized in coming years, maybe next 10 years, 5 years, 6 years down the line. And he has made a very forceful statement. If you look at the current scenario, I'm talking about the political scenario. Even the opposition's leaders and the people who are governing, here is the conflict. Everybody saying that government is going to privatize the everything. But for the new listeners who really wanted to understand what exactly the difference between private and the public sector banks, see, whichever bank where the government stake is above 50% is called public sector, because the majority stake, whoever has the majority stake, they are like on the driver's seat. So let's say the banks like SBI, PNB, Bank of India, Canara Bank, it's come under the public sector bank. That means the government owns this. Majority of the stake is owned by the government. It's also called the government bank in general term. And what is the private sector bank? Private sector banks is where the government, if the government is into, let's say they have a certain stake, but their stake is less than 50%, then that bank is called the private sector bank. We categorize is the government bank, we call it the PSU bank, and then the private bank. So the question is, everybody is talking about that the government, especially the opposition's parties are raising this question in parliament and the state, that government bank or the national bank should not be privatized. They are right on their way, but here is the business. How bank functions, somebody deposit money, then the bank lend it in terms of the loan to the people or the businesses. From their interest they pay back to, there are the various mechanisms where the bank generate the income and then they pay back to the depositor or to the government and whoever has bought this stake into the bank. Now the question is, why the finance secretary Mr. Swaminathan made such a statement that most of the PSU bank is going to be privatized. Let me give you a certain example. Bank is all about business. If there is no business, there is no bank. So here is I'll give you last 4 to 5 years of example where how the nationalized bank, the public sector bank, share of deposit of the people are reducing year on year. I'll give you the RBI data from the year 2015 to 2020, financial year 2015 to 2020. Here I am quoting some of the data and facts so that I am taking help of my mobile phone. So in year 2005, the public sector bank in terms of market share in terms of deposit in 2005 was 78.16%. And that time, in the year 2005, the private sector deposit share was just 7.12%. and the foreign bank was 4.7%. That was the scenario in the year 2005. Now come to the year 2010. 68%, and the private sector has grown marginally, which is 17.31%. That's the year, the difference between 2005 and 10. Same thing is happening in the year 2000. If you come back to year 2015, the public sector bank, the public deposit had 76.26, and here in the private sector, public deposit money is now 19.44%. You can also see in the chat which I am sharing with you. Now come to the year 2020. See, the larger difference happened in the year 2015 and 2020. In just 5 years, the public sector bank from 76.26, which was in the year 2015, now the public sector bank deposit ratio has gone down to 64.75%, 76 to 64. So round about 12%, 11 to 12% differences you will find that within just 5 years the private sector has gone rapidly. Now if you look at the private sector bank deposit from 19.14%, now it has gone up to 30.35%, almost 10% growth. So if you will compare with the same ratio, if the same thing goes, think about the year 2025, then the public sector will be reduced to maybe with the 50%, and the private sector will be close to 45% or 40% in next, I am telling you, next 5 years. And the foreign banks deposit ratio is 4.89%. Foreign banks, you can take an example like the Citibank, which is the international bank, Barclay Bank. There are a lot of foreign banks which is operating in India. Their deposit percentage is 4.89. This is the deposit market. Here comes to the real market, where the banks lend. Banks give the money in terms of loan. So look at the year 2000s. I am giving you the example of 2000s. In the year 2000, public sector banks was given close to 79.41% the loan ratio to the public or the businesses, and the private sector in the year 2000 was just giving 12.56%, and the foreign bank was 8.03%. Come to the year 2010, then the public sector bank 77.24%, and the private sector bank 18.08%. There was certain growth you can see in the private sector. And come to the year 2015, the public sector bank in terms of loan, their share is now reduced to 74.28%, and the private has gone up to 21.26%, and the foreign, of course, 4.45%, as you can see in the chart. Now come back to the year 2020. The public sector bank is only lending 59.8%, I mean in terms of loan, and the private sector had gone up drastically, which is like 36.04%, and the foreign one is 4.15%. So here is the real thing. The private sector is growing. Once the private sector is growing, the question arises, then why government is going to focus more about, no, I wanted to grow my public sector bank. If government is not doing good with the businesses, So what ultimately they do with the PSU, most of the PSU you will find they are closing it down, or maybe they are selling their stakes, because most of the time government don't know how to do the business. And you understand, whenever we visit any government banks, which is called the PSU banks, how they behave, how they operate, and request for loan which should take, let's say, 7 or 20 days. Then if you go to the government banks, they have a very difficult very difficulties to find the loan, or if you wanted to do the quick banking, no, they are like the babus, they work according to their time. But in private sector, they work as per the public time. If you cannot reach to the bank branch, they will do the home service to you. So here is the story. The public sector bank is going to be down and the private is going to go up. Take an example, I'll give you. Look at last 5 years nearby your area and tell me how many government banks has opened their branch in nearby your area. You must have found lot of bank has opened the branch, but hardly you will find any government bank had opened the branch nearby you. So here is the questions of efficiency. In terms of efficiency, in terms of timing, the private bank is growing up and the public sector is going to be down. Also government wanted to do it, and even the public don't want it. You know the new generations, entrepreneurs, businessmen, they don't want to work with the government banks where they have some different kind of work rule. Now here is the story for the people who really wanted to make their career into the banking sector. Especially those who are looking for, oh no, I need a government job and government job is the future. My friends, even though you will get a job, next 10-15 years you will be in the private sector. This is going to be the story. Hardly 1 or 2 the national bank is going to survive, remaining all will be the private sector. Maybe we don't know, after 20 years down the line all the bank will be the private sector. That can be happen. So the banking is not just about once I will have a banking job, I am sorted. For the people who are planning to join the government bank, be careful. If you are planning to join after 5 years, 6 years, the path is not like very simple and easy. It is going to be difficult day by day. So be careful if somebody is planning for their future in the government jobs, especially in the banking sector, because that is going to be privatized, and there is nothing like once you will have a job you can enjoy it. No, there is. What's the difference between government and the private sector? Private sector, what happens if there is a requirement for 10 people, they will hire 3 people, and they want 3 people is going to deliver the work of 10 people. That's how the private sector grew. Everywhere, right from the banking to big corporate, everywhere you go, 3 people are doing the work of 10 people. But in the government, if there is a requirement for 10 people, they will hire minimum at least 7 to 8 people, or some cases more than 10 people. So that is why the government is good with the policy in terms of HR and everything. You will find it's really great. But in terms of, if you wanted to look into the growth and you are putting some money into the government banks, you will have a less interest. So there are a lot of anecdotes, lots of story going to be, and trust me, the private is the future in terms of banking, and the government is going to be nowhere. Everything in India is going to be the Western way, or you can say the American way. Everything is going to be privatized. Nothing is going to be centralized, or you can say the PSU will hardly be in any business. Just wait for 5-10 years, you will find every sector is the private sector. So friends, if you like this video, of course, if you have certain comments to make, Do write in the comment sections